Live from the Business RadioX studio in Atlanta, it's time for Dental Business Radio, brought to you by Practice Quotient. Practice Quotient bridges the gap between the provider and payer communities. Now here's your host, Patrick O'Rourke.
Hi there, friends and family of the dental business community. Thank you very much for joining the show. This is your host, Patrick O'Rourke. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Practice Quotient, PPO analysis and negotiation by professionals. If you are a top-tier provider and you do not feel like you're getting top-tier compensation requisite to your training, expertise, and or competitive advantages in the marketplace, then you should call the fine folks at Practice Quotient. That's www.practicequotient.com, info@practicequotient.com. The telephone number is 470-592-1680. When you're talking about 6 and 7 figures, make sure that you are talking to professionals. That would be my suggestion. And I'd also like to thank John Ray, who's with me as ever, Reverend John Ray. Appreciate you being here. More importantly than John Ray, no offense, John Ray, is Trevor and Zach have joined us from OMS360. Gentlemen, how are you?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing lovely.
Awesome. You sound great on the radio.
Oh, yeah. John Ray says I have a face for radio. Zach, how are you doing, sir?
Doing great. Thanks for having us, Patrick. John.
And my pleasure. So national firm, but headquartered here in Georgia, right?
That's right.
And so you boys been jet setting all over the place.
It's been a busy while. Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit about OMS360. Zach.
Yeah, absolutely, Patrick. So OMS360 is a doctor-led oral surgery support organization. We are working with oral surgeons in the Southeast and Mid-Atlantic, helping them bring scale to their practices, which leads to value. So really excited about the groups we're working with now and excited to scale our organization.
Gotcha. Terrific. I like the Southeast and Mid-Atlantic very much. Would you tell me a little bit more about value when we say we're going to help them scale? What things do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple different areas. Oral surgeons have historically have come together in very small groups. Most of the oral surgery practices in the country are solo doctor practices. And 91% of oral surgeons are in groups of 6 or smaller. So it's very difficult for them to invest in growth, invest in leadership, and invest in technology that would help them run their business. So through scaling to take advantages of those different investment areas, also scaling to reduce the amount of risk in a 2-doctor practice. If one doctor gets sick and is out for 6 months, or gets injured and is out for 6 months, that will greatly impact that business. Sure. So by affiliating with other groups, instead of being a group of 2, being a group of 50 or 100 doctors, that reduces the risk of something like that happening to one doctor. And so through that reduction of risk and the opportunity to take advantage of scale, value is created. And when I say value in the capital markets, as you look at private equity, where they're putting their money, they see great value in these scaled organizations.
So can I put this in other terms that I understand? So we are going to ensure that optimal operation in order to increase our EBITDA and our geographical footprint to make us very attractive.
Trevor's going to jump in here.
Please.
I think, in addition to all the stuff Zach is going to say and has said, and we'll go deeper because that's by far the most interesting, I think. But I think we also focus on the fun stuff. So I think that we want to make sure that we communicate as well that these surgeons typically don't love the administrative side of the business.
Who does?
And certainly will tell you that they haven't spent a lot of time being classically trained in that side of the business.
Sure.
So if you think about that pressure on them, that they would probably rather be doing surgery because they went to school most likely for 24 or 26 years of their life, and post high school took one business class.
What about HR? I'm sure that they love doing human resources.
Everybody loves HR. But back to Zach, I just want to make sure that, we also communicate that it's to get you focused on the fun stuff.
Got it. No, that's a very important point.
I think so.
And I think, we have a lot of oral surgeon clients ourselves. And I don't think that any one of them have ever said, hey, Pat, you know what I really love doing is payroll, accounts receivable.
How about cybersecurity? That is one that I love to spend a lot of time on. Like Zach talks to me all the time. We're driving here. He's like, man, what'd you do this past weekend? I talked to him about, maybe some hockey and some stuff. He's like, man, I read some books on cybersecurity and it was amazing.
Don't forget compliance.
And compliance.
Compliance
yeah, you spend a lot of time there too. But most of those you said are audiobooks for you.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Really?
No.
Hours and hours.
So cybersecurity, we take very seriously ourselves, and compliance is a necessary evil, but I'm definitely not putting it as I'm making lists of what's fun and not fun. Compliance is on the not fun list, but it's crucial to, your business risk. Really.
I think you just really upset a lot of attorneys.
No, attorneys love guys like me because they're like, he's going to screw something up and then we're have to go in and fix it. Right. All of the attorneys feel free to put a like, and share it and say, look, don't listen to this guy. Listen to us. We've had attorneys on the show too. And they're like, Pat, you don't know anything. And by the way, my opinion, not a substitute for qualified legal counsel licensed to practice law in whatever state you're in. Nor is it a substitute for anything else. Right. We're just talking about business here. So with that, do you bring in compliance? I mean, give me the 30,000-foot view on if I'm an oral surgeon. All right. What do I not make me feel good that I don't have to worry about it? Sunshine and rainbows or something.
Yeah. And cotton candy as well. So we absolutely, we lean in those areas that, to Trevor's point, doctors are going to school for the most part to learn how to practice medicine and care for patients. And so we feel like there's certain areas that we can really add value around the IT compliance. Other areas are HR, employing the staffs, offering them superior benefits and 401k plans and items like that they couldn't do on a smaller scale. And so when you look at other business operations, billing, collecting, scheduling, areas like that, where certain doctors might have a huge need and other doctors might not have a need at all. So we're really able to analyze the business and see where we can make the biggest impact.
I think you talked about something really important there, and I don't know if the listeners caught it. He talked about all the things that we would lean in on, but then he finished with where it makes sense, right? We're not going to lean in everywhere. There might be practice that we're partnering with that has just the best scheduling. And so why would we wreck it, right? So we want to make sure that we're only leaning in where there's a benefit to the practice and the team and the doctors and the patients and the community that we do. So Zach, thanks for calling that out. I think that's really important.
Or if it's not broke, don't fix it. That's what you're saying.
100%.
And perhaps you'd be able to crowdsource across the different partner affiliates that you have, and some of them may be doing some really, really creative things that you may be able to then expand or replicate across the other organizations that don't know.
One of the things that you might have heard about us, or we may have inferred but not really spoken directly to, was of course we're going to share best practices across the oral surgery businesses, but we are a Shore Capital Partners backed company. Mm-hmm. So this is about the 40th company Shore Capital Partners have started. Majority of those are in healthcare, and majority of those are in multi-site practitioner-led healthcare. And you also heard us say we're essentially clinically agnostic, right? We don't want to interfere in the clinic. They're great docs doing great things. That's why we want to partner. We're not looking for fixer-uppers, right? So we're not targeting that at all. We're targeting great practices that want to grow and partner and see a nice future in oral surgery, and they see strength in numbers. So what we do is we reapply best practices from the other 600 partnerships that we've done across a bunch of other businesses. And we won't spend a lot of time on short capital partners, but one of the things we're really, really proud of it is one of, if not the top performing private equity fund in microcap healthcare space in the U.S.
No, that's important for sure. So that lends a lot to the experience and to for the end game. End game is important too, as well. And so I'm sure that they have learned a lot across the other spaces.
And one thing I'll add to that is, although the practice of medicine is very different from an oral surgeon to maybe an orthopedic surgeon or ophthalmologist. However, the business side has a lot of parallels and overlap. At the end of the day, it's all multi-site healthcare practice business, and so you can take learnings from possibly another specialty and apply some of those principles to others. So to what Trevor was saying, some people might say, like, what does orthopedics really have to do with oral surgery? Well, on the clinical side, very little. On the business side, actually quite a bit.
I'd agree. Yeah, for sure. So when you guys are looking for partners, you mentioned that looking for more of a successful practice. And so this is like, help describe for me and for our listeners who may include some of your potential partners that you have talked to or are going to talk to or would love to talk to. Who's the best fit, or who's your kind of your target, or describe most of your partners?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, oral surgeons are typically in smaller practice groups of 6 or below.
Sure.
So we're really looking to build critical mass in certain markets, and that's why I mentioned the South and Mid-Atlantic as opposed to just the whole country. We really want to partner with doctors in those markets and find other groups to partner with as well, so you can take advantage of that proximity. So I would say our target market is, typically 2 doctors plus. However, in markets where we do have the critical mass, we will look at solo doctor practices.
Mm-hmm.
So and practices that are poised and looking for ways to grow. Obviously, we don't want to partner with doctors who are on their way out or have no desire to grow, or just looking for an exit. Looking for groups that we can really, to use my word from earlier, lean in on. We can lean in and help them grow and help them not only run their business more efficiently, but also help them grow their footprint.
So let me put this into my own words just to make sure I'm understanding. We're not looking for folks that are going to retire in 2 years, go put their toes in the sand or fish, we'll do whatever. You guys are looking for folks that have a little bit more runway, that are, maybe not in it for 20 years, but 5 years plus.
No, I'll be actually very specific jumping in on this. I think the 34-year-old oral surgeon benefits from this more than the 44 or the 54-year-old oral surgeon for a couple of reasons. So thinking about what we're going to do, we're going to bring $1 billion resources to $1 million companies, right? So right now across our portfolio, we have 17,500 employees, a lot of great stuff going on across all these other businesses. So we're going to bring those practices to these local oral surgery businesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's that going to do for that doctor or that group of doctors, right? Like Zach said, three or more in new markets for us, for sure. That's going to give them a better quality of life because they're not going to be at the soccer field Saturday on their app tracking HR and making payroll and looking at production, and right. So they're going to be able to step away if they partner with someone in their practice, another doctor. They partner with them because they trust them, right? So
right. Yeah.
If you're going to partner with us, we're going to trust you. You're going to trust us. We're going to really lean in on, with Zach's expression, on the business side of the business, and you're going to really lean in on the clinical side. So now there's free time. What are you going to do with that free time? You can do whatever you want with free time, right? We're going to buy a business. We expect it to perform how it's performing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you want it to perform faster, let's lean in and help it perform faster. But if you want to be same, then your extra time is free time. You can also take more clinical time. You can do whatever you want, with that free time, right? But now, as a partner of ours, you're going to invest part of your what would be income. So in the past, you'd make your wages, right? Mm-hmm. And you'd live on it, and then you'd invest some. So what you get to do now is take that scrape and invest it in a private equity fund that's in the top 1% of performance in the US, instead of investing it with your investment advisor. So you're really just shifting your time from business administrative tasks to either free time or clinic. Mm-hmm. And you're shifting your investment strategy from public markets or restaurants or rental homes or whatever you're doing with your excess investments. And you're becoming a private equity investor. And if, I don't know anybody else in the room, but nobody's calling me and asking me to be a private equity investor because those are big checks, right? Mm-hmm. But now this gives you an opportunity to invest maybe $1 million or 2 or 3 at a time when you partner with somebody like us into private equity.
That's interesting.
Where there's no shortage of capital there. So this gives them a way in that they wouldn't have any other way.
So I've never thought about it like that. That's very interesting. Two very good points. Number one was the partner and the trust. And the other part of it is you're able to get private placement essentially as an accredited investor, but you're able to get some at better valuations because you're at the ground floor. But am I saying that correctly?
Exactly. And the reason why it was so apparent to me is when you were talking like that, that's the way the market thinks. A lot of people come to us and say, hey, I'm looking for an exit plan. And actually you're about 5 years too late. If you're going to a partner saying, I'm looking for an exit plan, you missed it. You're going to be selling your assets in your patient list. The value in partnership, at least for private equity and oral surgery, is the doctor. It's not the building the files of the team. It's the doctor. Mm-hmm. And that doctor's ability to produce and the run rate of the practice over the upcoming years, right? If you think about it really, really unemotionally, we buy, we discount future cash flow. Mm-hmm. And oral surgery is a great business to do it in, right? And we're a healthcare company.
So cash cow.
So the more career they have, the longer they're going to be a private equity investor, especially if there's recapitalization events and they get to take some off the table every time and keep rolling forward. If you look at the average returns of private equity versus the public markets, right? It's the highest performing asset class that you can get involved in. It's a way to do it.
Yep. That's interesting. So I'm going to go back to this partner trust thing. Oh, I've been working with oral surgeons for a long, long time, and I know a lot of them very well. I would consider some of them very good friends.
Would they say the same?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. I would imagine.
Just making sure. Just keeping it light.
Yeah, sure. And so I speak all the time at their events. And I talk about insurance negotiation, blah, blah. A lot of times, they get torch and pitchfork. There's a lot of misconceptions about the insurance industry, and some of them are fair characterization, some of them aren't. And they're all like, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, we're going to, band together. And I'm like, really? Do you all like each other? And they're like, well, kind of. I'm like, you guys all want to be partners? Huh? And they're like, I'm like, are you guys married? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, do you want any more wives? And they're like, well, no. And like, do you want to get married to all of the men in this room? Because oral surgeons predominantly men, not all of them. Deepa, hey, how you doing? I know you are not a man. But do you want to get married to all the people in this room, whatever state you happen to be in? And I can say, like, I have a business partner and I have a wife, and I certainly don't want any more of them. Right. I love them. Don't get me wrong, but I don't want 20 more. And so speak to the audience about that part, because there may be some fear of commitment. Maybe I'm not saying that right. I'm just saying it for me. Maybe it's my own personal stuff, but
yeah, absolutely. So I'll answer that in kind of 2 parts. One is, what's the alternative for doctors who want to be part of a larger group? And then looking at the history of shore capital partners. So the first one, a lot of doctors see value in scaling the business and bringing in 5, 10 doctors. The concern is exactly what you bring up. It's do I want to be married to a larger group of partners? And that's a very capital intensive strategy, either bringing in associates and paying guarantees, expanding sites of service, any way you put it, it's capital intensive and it takes a very, very long time. with a capital partner, being an intermediary, and really putting all that together, it's an opportunity to see the benefits of that without the administrative burden of setting all that up, and the capital burden of setting all that up. And so I mentioned kind of the second part of the answer was Shore Capital Partners. Inc. Magazine does a poll every year, and they poll partners of private equity firms, and Shore Capital ends up on the very top of the founder-friendly private equity firm list, which is extremely important. It says after the check is cleared and you've partnered with a private equity firm, are you happy about it? And that's overwhelmingly yes when they ask partners of Shore Capital.
Who's at the bottom of this list?
That's a good question. I think they only published the top.
Really? So all the cool kids and everybody else, well, you just didn't make the list. That's interesting. So that's a big honor, because I think that Inc. is a very well-respected and independent. It's not like you can buy your way on there, if I'm not mistaken. John Ray's walking around like the paparazzi. Everybody, John Ray.
Great job, John Ray, Reverend, the Reverend.
He likes Reverend. That book, it's not a Bible, but he just carries it around with him.
So Patrick, you talked about what that doctor might be thinking about, right? Like the partnership and will they have the trust, and that takes time, but in most, if not all cases, that's something that can easily be overcome if you are transparent in your mission, vision, values, right? And the way you conduct yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And so Shore does have a wonderful reputation there across their companies. So that's something that always shakes out in the wash. But if I'm one of these doctors, I'm an oral surgeon, and I'm talking to somebody like us, I wonder what happens after that check clears in terms of control, because people haven't been telling that doctor what to do for a long time, right? They've been at
king of the castle,
near the very top of whatever command structure they're in, whether it's friend group or student group or family or business for a long time.
And most of them are very type A personalities.
Some of them are kind of successsical.
Yeah.
I would say they do very, very well. So what does that look like? And it's interesting. The first time I heard about Shore Capital Partners, it was a buddy of mine. We coached hockey together for 10 years, run around the rinks. He's an ophthalmologist here in Atlanta. And he's like, hey, I'm going to partner with this private equity group. I'm like, why? Why, man? And why are you telling me? And I am an operator. I've been running private equity backed companies for a while. And what's your why? And he's telling me how cool they are and how it's going to be so great. I'm like, you know what? Everybody's going to say that. Everybody's money's green, but what's it like after the check clears? And I'd never heard of Shore Capital at the time. And then for the next 2.5 years, I had to hear how wonderful it was and how much it really was awesome after the check cleared. So I kind of paid attention and got to know Shore better and realized they are a really amazing company running amazing companies. And that's when I decided I want to get involved. But to this day, my buddy loves it, and the way he was treated as a doctor in the organization as the first group in was just tremendous. And so to the listeners out there, if you want to learn more about this, don't talk to me, talk to him.
Gotcha.
And I'll connect you directly. He's just very happy with how it's gone, and he just loves everything about it.
Right. And it's not like when they pulled Trevor that Trevor has doesn't have a track record. I know that you're in Atlanta, so that's how we've met each other in the past through your previous careers and stops. And so you have a pretty good reputation and as a straight shooter, and you're a likable fella. And that's a good story though, because you're like, wait a minute, I know all about private equity, and you're trying to kind of caution your friend. And then not only did he like him, he got you on board.
You did, yeah.
Professionally.
Sure.
As a spokesperson on Dental Business Radio with Zach, of course.
I have arrived.
Right. And so that says a lot about, because you wouldn't have just jumped ship, right? You would have had a wary eye, I would imagine.
Yeah. I think that everybody, when they choose a partner or a path, right, has to be very, very careful. When Zach chose to come and work here and build this company together, there's a lot of things he needed to think about in terms of, what's the right and wrong reasons. I think everybody that joins the organization as an employee, a co-investor, or a partner, right, needs to make sure they know what the future, at least have a really good feel for what the future is going to look like. There's no guarantees on tomorrow, but there are things you can line up in your favor to give yourself a better chance of success.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Zach, what was it that brought you on? Did he promise hockey lessons?
No, but he has invited me out to play hockey quite a few times. So I've yet to take him up on that. No, what attracted me to OMS360 and Shore Capital is I had some former colleagues that I'd at other Shore Capital portfolio companies and just always heard them just speak very highly of Shore. I've been working with surgeons for almost 15 years now, and really when I met Trevor, he just cast the vision of building a doctor-led oral surgery company, and just loved the idea of really bringing value to oral surgeons because historically there really haven't been organizations doing this. And so Shore's track record, Trevor's leadership, the other executives that he was bringing on at that time, just knowing it would fit in really well with what we're building here, were all extremely attractive to me. So
That's
really,
great.
really happy to be here, and even more excited than today than I was the day I took the job. So
Is that because you're on this podcast?
exactly, he never told me we would be on a podcast. So
Where are you guys going to meet all of the fine oral surgeons? Because where are you going, to Amos, New Orleans, or are you going to?
So Zach knows this better than me. So let me start, because I just love to talk, and then he'll correct me and then give you all of the right stuff. So of course we'll be at the national show Amos, right? I'll be at ACOMS in Vegas coming up here in a few weeks. I will be at the Invista Summit in Austin coming up in a few weeks. So first week of March. Also out there, the ADSO, ADSO, I will be at. And then do you want to take it to the South and Mid-Atlantic level?
sure,
Where you'll be?
I will be at a lot of the state society meetings. I will be at the Southeastern Society of OMS meeting, South Carolina, the Southwest meeting in outside of Denver. And yeah, like I mentioned, a lot of the state association meetings.
I think you just went to the Georgia one here.
I did. I was here last weekend. It
How was that?
was great.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Favorite doctor at that event?
I don't know if I should say.
Okay, then don't.
Yeah.
Least favorite doctor?
Oh, I've got that one.
Oh, yeah.
A guy named.
You were down there at the country club in Decatur, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It was great. Druid Hills, some good speakers. They were hosting a number of residents from Emory, so it was a good crew. Good
Right
crowd.
on.
Can we spend a minute on residents?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Is
please.
there any other
I said
burning,
absolutely. I mean, not
What?
my show, Patrick. Yeah.
any other burning issues you want to
No,
talk about?
we'll give a shout out to Dr. John Muse down there because he helps coordinate. That's his membership at the Druid Hills Country Club, which is a fine place, which has not taken me to play golf yet, John.
Thank you, Dr. Muse.
Yeah, and also to Hank Holderfield. You're the man. Haven't seen you in a bit. Anyway, to the residents, I have I have a question because this has been coming up with my clients about residents, but I would like, because you have a burning desire, I want you to scratch your itch.
So William Blair Consulting has a pretty interesting data point that 90% of graduating dentists do not want to own a practice. Interesting data point. When they graduate. That changes and softens over time.
Do you think that's because of debt or debt?
I think debt is one of the factors. I think that's not a real factor. I think that education debt is good debt, and you can borrow against it when you buy a practice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can, if you're a Corvette, I'm sure it's fantastic. But if while you're in dental school, you buy a vet and a beach house and have a pretty spendy lifestyle and you're $1 million in the hole in addition to your education, that's another issue. But I don't think that's the real issue. I think people have been told it's the real issue, and some of these dentists believe it, that they can't go out and buy a practice. But I also think that some of them just don't want to. I think that might be more prevalent today than the past. I am not going to say that those statistics hold for oral surgeons. I've never seen it bifurcated for oral surgeons only. That's just
I think
general
they're
dentistry.
totally different demographics, personally.
I agree. But But that stat is relevant because when we talk to residents, there's this polarizing moment. What do you guys do? We partner with practices to help them grow. Who are you? We are backed by private equity. And before we say fund, half of them walk away and half of them step closer.
Huh.
Literally, like
That's
they will mid-sentence just turn tail. And the other half, like, that sounds cool. I think that's going to work. So there is this polarization in the residencies on whether or not financial partners are good for oral surgery or for their career. And think about it, right? 12 years of high school, 12 to 14 years of post-high school. I'm going to own my own practice. I'm going to own my own practice. Hang on. What happened to the marketplace? Right? So there are some people that either don't understand or don't like where the industry is going. And it's interesting because there's a lot of strength in working together, right? Whether if you're a solo, you're stronger if there's two of you, stronger if you're 4 or 8, and way stronger if there's 100, right? Power and numbers just go back through the course of time.
I mean, I always think about things in leverage standpoint. And so
yeah,
they're more leverage.
So I don't have the answer. I just posed the question, right? Happy to talk about that further. If anybody has an opinion here, Zach, Patrick.
I don't talk to the residents as much. And so I really couldn't speak intelligently to it.
So we know it's a great opportunity, right? Because we've walked through it and we understand that they graduate with all this wonderful clinical knowledge and not a tremendous amount of business knowledge. Some have applied themselves in other courses or classes or undergrad degrees in business, but not the majority for sure. And I just think it's really interesting that there's this lack of knowledge there. And I would love to educate that market so they can make a more informed decision versus just what I might see now.
Yeah. And one thing I will add, and just meeting with a lot of residents and talking to them, going to school for as long as they have, oftentimes getting out of residency with a family, the last thing they want to do is start something from the ground up and put all that time into building the business because it takes away from their quality of life and their time with their family. And so I think there's been a shift in what's important to a lot of people. And I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just different priorities. And so the opportunity to join an organization like OMS360 has a lot of appeal to a certain subset of new doctors. Now, we're not trying to partner with everybody. I mean, I don't think we're a good fit for all doctors, but I do believe there is a significant material number of doctors where this type of structure and partnership makes a lot of sense.
So help me understand, and for our listeners, because I do think actually the residents probably listen to the show more than I know. And I was just in Chicago in December, and I was across from the RCOMS, and a lot of the residents are very active within like Amos, and we're coming up there and talking. Like I said, it's not. I don't talk to them a lot until you are become established just by the very nature of our business, which we're not here to talk about. So for the residents, I can't imagine that what you guys were talking about, that you're looking also for like established practices that are 34 years old, right? That are doing 1.3 and upwards, in production, if not collections. Right? Are you looking for the residents to become associates? Is that why you want to talk to them? Zach, you have the floor, sir.
Okay, I got this answer. So yes, we want residents to come in, establish their, themselves in the practice as associates, and then move into a partnership situation where they are owners of the business as well. Oftentimes, that associate opportunity comes with a guaranteed comp structure. With an opportunity to exceed that, when you hit certain targets, and that takes away a lot of the risk out of making that shift from a resident to full-time practicing doctor in a practice. And so I think that gives them a chance to get comfortable with the other partners in the practice, and helps them to start developing those referral relationships and building their book of business before they are on a production-based comp structure. Trevor,
I'll jump in on that a little bit as well. So if you think about the way that the marketplace has valued and brought in associates to partners over the past 20 years, right? It's pretty tried and true, right? And so let's just ballpark, right? You hear many, many times the buy-in's $1 million, and they'll buy in $1 million in this private practice. And then they'll retire and they'll get $1.2 million. They'll sell that buy-in to somebody else, or maybe $1.3 million, right? But they're certainly not escalating tremendous value in the buy-in, right? Because they come in, they hold equity 20 years, and they sell it to somebody else. They hold equity 20 years, and it continues to go and flow that way. Mm-hmm. It's almost like I'm going to buy in. Well, it's not almost like it is. I'm going to buy in, and now I'm going to get higher income because I'm going to get partner distributions. That's what they're buying. Mm-hmm. Tell me a 34 to 36-year-old, 40-year-old that can come in and invest in a private equity return investment at a fraction of that cost. It's unavailable to them, right? So they can come in, buy in, and then the value of their buy-in as a partner is the same value that Zach and I and the fund realize in the investment. They're literally investment partners with us. Mm-hmm. So instead of a 20, 30% return over a career, or even 100% return over a career, they bought in for $1 million, they sold for $2 million, which I haven't seen that big of a return yet. Maybe you have, right? So if you look at our track record at the top 1%, right? So we have, I'm a little reticent to give our exact number, but we're running over 4 times return on what the average private equity fund returns. So if you look at what average PE returns are, ours are at least 4x. Mm-hmm.
So,
which is pretty attractive to a new young partner at a practice to be able to participate in that.
Well, I can do math
over time.
And now I'm like, maybe I should have been a resident.
Takes a long time though.
It does, but fighting with insurance companies, sometimes I question my own sanity, to be honest with you. I love you guys. Don't get me wrong. All of you that are listening and my colleagues on the other side of the ball. I miss you. I'll see you soon somewhere. Hopefully it's warm. Back to you guys. Now, here's one thing that I'm hearing from my clients. So you guys are likely familiar with there's staffing shortages everywhere, right? And it's not just the provider community. It's also the insurance industry. It's every community. I can't get a pizzas to my house when I've got, 10 kids and they're trying to burn the place down. Like I can't get pepperoni pizza. Right. And so the challenge for the associate or for the oral surgery practices, they're like, I can't get any associates. And you know who they're pointing the finger at? They're like, oh, this is private equity folks. They're offering them a lot more money and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, that's probably true. I don't know. It's not my thing. And so is the competitive environment for the associates as much or higher than even high quality and high caliber oral surgery practices? Like, do you have any comments or suggestions?
So I think when the associate joins a practice, private or private equity backed, well, certainly in our model, they join the practice, right? They're still the local hero in the community. They're still working the local referral relationships, right? It is a private practice experience in terms of our doctoral led group. So I don't think that changes their mindset.
Gotcha. How do you talk to me how, if John Ray was 60 years younger and a lot smarter than he is, and he went to residency school and he was a resident. And so, but maybe John Ray doesn't know where he wants to live. In John Ray, he's kind of got a different personality. He's got the purple Corvette, he's a little rough around the edges. Like, how are you going to know which practice to place him in, right? Out of your portfolio of different oral surgeons? Are you going to give him like a personality test, or like, what do you do?
So we will bring large company resources to smaller companies, right? So we will do everything we can to match John Ray to the right opportunity. But a lot of this is John Ray. He might just really love Kentucky.
He does.
Well, we probably focus there, right? So in the end of the day, the associates that are going to interview well and are clear and have good skills, they're going to be able to work where they want to work, I think, right? And I think it's going to be up to them to be selective where they want to go. Now, if it's wide open and we get to know an associate that we like and they're like, hey, where can I go? That's an opportunity on their side that they can have one strong relationship with us and then get access to literally eventually hundreds of practices that they can be in one recruiting funnel and be matched really at a bunch of different practices through one contact versus they have to meet 100 different doctor owners of private practices and then make that selection.
Right. And then they have to be in there, I would imagine, for some time to figure it out. And everybody's just like a honeymoon period. Like everybody's got their game face on. They're like, oh, it's super great here. You don't really know. And so in your model, if I'm reading this correctly, let's say that you put John Ray over in, Lexington. All right. Shout out to all my folks over there in Lexington. Love you. Rita, Bob, what's up? And so John Ray doesn't get along real well with Bob. And you guys are like, all right, well, you know what? John Ray's a really good producer here, right? He's a very good clinician, and he just, he occasionally has some, personality quirks. But you know what? He would fit really well with the Cuckoo Puffs down in Florida. I'm from Florida, so I could say that. And I'm just making this up, ABC Oral Surgery in Ocala, or something like that.
It's a really good group.
But you're like, John Ray's a good guy, so it's just not working out there or for whatever reason. And so can you move him? Is he able to move down to ABC?
I'm going to come back to the HR piece.
Uh-huh.
Remember we said nobody loves doing HR. Anybody in our organization, from assistant to front desk to doctor, that wants to, or it makes sense to be in another market, if the market is receptive and there's room, why wouldn't we allow people to be where they want?
Right. Because I guess there's where my question, I was just trying to pick on John Ray because I find it personally amusing. But really, I think that for some folks, not me, I'm married, I have kids, I don't go far, right? But, there's some that are married and they're like, you know what, I want to check out Lexington and I want to check out, Ocala or Florida, or maybe I want to go to different places, year or 2 years at a time. I don't know. And when you are married into one practice, that's a single practice, right? Just, partner, maybe there's two partners in one, like you can't go nowhere. You're stuck, right? You're like, say we're in Georgia, so it's usually Augusta, right? So now you're in Augusta. Well, Augusta's really cool when golf games, championships going on, but maybe you don't like everything else about it, and so you want to explore other options. Is that available to these kids?
Certainly not as and I think I know you want me to say yes, but certainly not as a expectation, because the practice is going to have the opportunity. We're never going to put a doctor in a practice that doesn't need an additional doctor, right? If the opportunity is there, absolutely, it makes sense. But we have to be very careful to the doctors that have built a great business. And we say, hey, this guy from California wants to roll into Texas. We're not going to force that. The local doctors would have to agree.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I think Trevor used the term match. I mean, they've got to be a match. I mean, we're bringing $1 billion resources to $1 million companies, and these are they're still being operated as local practices. So the partners there have to be in agreement and be fully supportive of bringing in another doctor, or else it doesn't work. So it's got to work on both sides.
So it goes all back to the independent decisions of the partner practices, which are pretty much operating as they were, being successful as they were, just not having to worry about as much as they used to and having a little bit more fun and free time. Am I picking that up?
Spot on.
All right. Mm-hmm. I like it. So now if folks want to reach the two of you and they were interested in a private conversation, how do they do that? Zach?
Yeah, so on the internet, www.oms360.com.
And those are numbers 360.
Yeah, oms360.com. You can click contact us, or you can also see our pictures and bios on the page.
What about Zach, ZACH, at oms360.com?
You got it.
Blow up his inbox.
Or, yeah.
No, don't give mine.
Just kidding.
Mine is Trevor at OMS360.com. Happy to get your email.
Gotcha. And if you would like, if you like the content of this show, please leave a comment or wherever you found it. I know John Ray does a terrific job of broadcasting it all over the world. So if it's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc., please leave a comment, question, feedback. I am your host, Patrick O'Rourke. I'd like to thank the Reverend John Ray. Thank you very much, John. I know I pick on you a little bit, but I love you. I do. You're getting a Christmas card. And I'd like to thank our sponsor, Practice Quotient, PPO analysis and negotiation is professionals that handle PPO contracts and strategic guidance on your PPO strategies. Thank you very much. 470-592-1680. Thank you very much to our sponsors. Thank you very much to John Ray. And I would like to thank Trevor and Zach for what a really terrific show. Did you boys have fun?
Had a blast.
All right.
Thanks for having us.
All right. To our listeners, until next time.